Jade beads represent water drops. Tlaloc is recognizable by his goggle eyes, fangs, and serpent nose. There are still serpents to be found among the ruins of the Great Pyramid.
In the Egyptian world, the pyramids were largely used as interior spaces for burials, but in Mesoamerica, the pyramids and the ceremonial centers were exterior spaces. They were theaters. Theaters for the performance of the relationship between the people and the gods, between nature and daily life.
In these theaters, the Aztec gods and goddesses were represented by sculptures. This enormous figure, over 8 feet tall and weighing 12 tons, is the earth goddess Coatlicue.
This is a block, a solid block, which cannot be penetrated. It doesn't even have a sex. It is a massive sculpture with no penetration whatsoever. I think it was Baudelaire who, when he saw reproductions of Aztec sculpture in Paris in the 19th century, said this is a barbaric art. Barbaric in the sense that it is completely alien to the human. There is very little humanity in most of Aztec sculpture. It is a brutal assertion of the powers of the gods and of the goddesses. They are different from you and me. They are different from women and men. Do not forget it.
This sculpture reveals the bloodshed that inevitably accompanied Aztec mythology. The goddess is portrayed as a decapitated figure. 2 great serpents representing streams of blood flow from her neck. For archaeologist Elizabeth Baquedano, a leading expert on Aztec sculpture, these images are keys to their way of life and death.
Blood, of course, is the essence of our body, is what makes us alive. And of course, there's nothing more precious in ourselves than our blood. Blood was given to the gods in order for them to survive.
But how did they use blood in their rituals? A few yards from the ruins of the Great Pyramid lies one of the only covered spaces in this vast sacred complex. Only a building of real importance could have been sited so close to the heart of this precinct. The reason for its privileged position began to emerge once excavations were carried out. 3 distinct sections were uncovered, progressing in sacred significance. A portico opened into an outer hall where 2 sculpted warriors stood, eagle warriors. Archaeologists believe that this was the temple of the eagle warriors. They wore beautiful eagle costumes and were loved and rewarded by the rulers, just like the knights of a royal court. The inner sanctum could only be entered by passing 2 terrifying figures. This is the god of death, Mictlan Tecuhtli. His protruding liver an image of regeneration. These figures guarded the most sacred area of the temple, a 4-sided patio decorated with 4-petaled flowers. In order to investigate the rituals that took place here, scientists are collaborating with archaeologists. Chemical analysis of samples from the plaster floor indicates the presence of a variety of substances. As a purification ceremony, frankincense or copal may have been burnt in these huge braziers depicting Tlaloc, the rain god. Most telling of all, the scientists found traces of albumin, indicating the presence of blood, where these benches are decorated with clusters of flowers. The painting marks the spot where real clusters of flowers once stood. They contain the spines of the maguey cactus and sharpened animal bones, which the eagle warriors used to pierce the earlobe, thigh, arm, tongue, or penis, offering their own blood to the gods. This ritual bloodletting, auto-sacrifice as it's called, was the most common form of Aztec sacrifice. In this relief, warriors proceed towards the cluster of flowers to perform this ceremony. Perhaps the Aztec rulers themselves came here to shed their own blood? After extensive analysis of their results, scientists have discovered the highest concentration of albumin around the gods of death. Their results confirm the accuracy of the Aztec records depicting large quantities of blood poured over these gods. Archaeologists believe that this ceremony marked the death of one ruler and the inauguration of the next. A reminder of the continuous cycle of life and death in the natural world. And the rituals seem to work. Within just 140 years of their arrival in the Valley of Mexico, the Aztecs conquered land stretching from the Gulf of Mexico in the east to the Pacific coast in the west, more than 300 miles away. By the time the Spaniards arrived, 60 years later, the empire stretched as far south as the borders of Guatemala. The Aztecs demanded tribute from each conquered state. In time, they would pay dearly for this coercion. Jade, turquoise, obsidian, and alabaster for the ritual offerings buried at the Great Pyramid. Aztec society was itself a pyramid with a strict hierarchy. At its top, the ruler himself, combining spiritual, political, and military powers. In this frieze, the ruler is depicted triumphantly grasping the forelocks of conquered leaders. But the stone itself served a much bloodier purpose. Victims were tethered to the center and provided only with dummy weapons. Warriors fought them to the death. Both Aztecs and their enemies were sacrificed. For the Aztecs, it was an honor. But sacrifice was a powerful tool for intimidating enemies. Rulers were expected to prove their worth by capturing live victims for sacrifice to the sun god.
And their blood then ritually makes the land fruitful. It fertilizes the land, so that in that way the blood of the slain will contribute towards the rebirth of vegetation in the rainy season and the flowers that go all with that. So that blood and flowers is a way of referring to this great cycle of life and the rhythm of human activities that unfolds within the changing seasons.
Looking at these bloody rituals from a present-day perspective, it's difficult to understand the people who performed them, and easy to condemn them as a brutal, alien race. Perhaps in the context of their age, the Aztecs have been judged harshly. Ross Hassig has scrutinized the historical records.
But at the same time they were sacrificing people. Of course, we have the Inquisition going on in Spain, in which people are being killed for heresy. We have criminals and political enemies having their heads placed on stakes on the Tower of London. And so there's plenty of barbarity at this time to go around for almost all people. It's easier for people to see another group as being strange and different, and look how quaint, look how bizarre.